So if you could state your name and tell us how long you've been in Carroll County.
The name is Bernard Jones. Most people call me Bernie Jones and a few other names. But I've been back in Carroll County since 1968.
Okay, you said back in Carroll County.
Well, I went to grade school and high school here and graduated in 1960, moved to Baltimore going to college, and then got married and moved back in 68. So I've been in Carroll County about 60 years.
Wow.
So,
What was it like growing up in Carroll County?
well, growing up in Carroll County, I'm originally from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So growing up in Carroll County wasn't any different to me than what it was in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. There was segregation there and segregation here. The only difference, I think, in North Carolina, Rocky Mount, in the black neighborhoods, we had our own fire department, our own grocery stores, the whole 9 yards. We had our own community. We were on the other side of the track. Where in Carroll County, it was a little different. And the biggest difference, in Carroll County, certain stores you couldn't go into, you couldn't eat in the restaurants, things like that. But growing up in Rocky Mount, we go in our own grocery stores and our own restaurants. So that was a new thing for a 6-year-old.
What were the schools like for you here?
Well, I started school here. My sisters didn't. I started school here. So, I went to all black school all 12 years, and I went to Morgan State for a couple years, then to Hopkins. So I never experienced going to school with white students or mixed students until I went to Johns Hopkins.
Wow. So how have you've been back now since after college. How do you see your role in the Carroll County community?
I don't really think I have a role. I'm just trying to survive like everyone else.
Well, you're involved in a lot of organizations. You do a lot of work with nonprofits, I know.
Yeah, well, I've done that, I don't know, that most of my life here. I started off with the housing ownership purchase effort in the NAACP back in the late 60s. And we renovated some houses on Union Street that we purchased from the college, did that. But one of the things I was thinking of today, when I was in high school here in the 9th grade, that was, I think, 57, 58, the first year that the Robert Moton was allowed to participate in the Stedford at Western Maryland College then. And this was, the Stedford was a combination of choirs from the 4 high schools. Up until then, Robert Moton wasn't allowed to participate. So that one year, they decided to let Robert Moton participate. And fortunately, our school, we only had, I think, 200 or 300 kids in the whole school. So we didn't have enough alto and bass singers. So I was one of the bass singers. So I was a member of the first class or choir to participate in the Stedford, the joint Stedford for Carroll County. So that was a first for me.
Yeah, what was that like?
Well, it was different. I mean, we'd never interacted in that scenario. So when you have 4 high schools and you're all there singing together, and we practiced, I guess, 7 or 8 times as a group. But it was a different, and it was a nice experience. I mean, we felt proud and honored. Yeah, I thought it was great. We sang an opera, a Japanese opera, and I thought it was a great experience for me.
And so you went on to Morgan, and then you came back to Carroll County, you said? Yeah,
well, I got married. Our wife, she went to nursing school in the city, and then after the riots in 1968, we had some property here in the county, and we built a house here, and we moved back to Carroll County. I was working for Black & Decker. Matter of fact, I was the first black that Black & Decker hired above a janitor in 1963. So up until '63, every African American that worked for Black & Decker was either a janitor or they cut grass.
And what was your job?
I was an engineering technician in the engineering department, which was kind of unique. My immediate supervisor was a guy by the name of Harry Short. Well, he was the director of engineering, and I was fortunate to work with him. I spent, I guess, the first 5 years working on a hammer drill, which they used to take core samples from the moon when they took the moon shot. So I thought that was unique. So
wow.
that was a great experience to work on something like that the world got to see. So that took a while to get adjusted to, because being the first in engineering and being the first Black, I got all the dirty jobs. But I survived.
Did that ever stop along the way?
Well, I only worked at Black & Decker till probably '71, and then I got a job with General Electric Company's major appliance lab out of Louisville, Kentucky. GE built they were building a monstrous appliance manufacturing facility in Columbia, and I got a job as an engineering technician for them in their major appliance lab, and I was the first Black to work in their major appliance laboratories. So I thought that was kind of unique also.
So did you have the same experience there?
No, the experience there was kind of different, because when we went to work in Columbia, a lot of the engineers and all were from Maryland, and I knew some of them from Hopkins, and it was totally different. It was a unique experience. But back then, I guess our senior vice president of Major Appliance Laboratories then was Jack Welch. So everyone knows the story about Jack Welch. But, so I met him long before he ever became president of GE. We used to call him Neutron Jack, because when he went into a factory, when he left, they closed it.
So you raised your family here in Carroll County?
I raised 4 boys here in Carroll County. Well, 3 boys and a girl here in Carroll County. They all went to Westminster High School. 3 went to University of Maryland, and 1 boy went to University of West Virginia.
Wow. So did you see differences what difference did you see from when you were growing up?
But see, they went to predominantly all-white school, because the population back in the 80s of African Americans in Carroll County still was only like 5 or 6%. So in Westminster High, which was the largest, probably still is the largest high school in the county, when you have 2,000 students and only a couple hundred, a few hundred are African Americans or any other nationality, they had their problems, but they handled them. They learned how to handle them, and they participated in the sports and choir and stuff like that. So they survived.
What other work have you done in the community? What organizations do you work with now?
Well, right now I belong to the Historical Society of Carroll County, the NAACP, Westminster Kiwanis Club, and Shalom Zone. Back in the 90s, I was selected by Joe Beaver to be on the board of directors of Union National Bank. So I was the first African American in Carroll County to be a director of a major bank, a state bank. So that was different.
In what way?
Well, you learned a lot about the county. You learned who had money, who didn't have money. And people had a little more respect for you then, because when you went in to get a loan approved or at a major amount of money, the board of directors, certain level, we approved it. And a lot of the people with money kind of showed a little more respect then.
You've mentioned a number of firsts just in talking. Are there any other things where you were the first?
Well, I think those were the major things that I thought made a difference in my life. Being the first director of a bank, you never realize the perks that you get being on a board of director of banks, and the things you learn, and the way you can invest money and save money. We weren't privileged to that when I grew up at Robert Moten. Now the banks go into the schools and teach the kids how to bank and all. That never happened when I went to school.
Yeah.
Our teachers taught us how to save money and all that, but we never had that opportunity. So I thought that was a major change.
I know you have been involved out at the community college here in Carroll County.
Yes, I've been on that board for some time, but I guess I was the first African American to be on the Community College Foundation Board, but I was not the first to be involved with the college. One of my high school teachers, Betty Dodson, I think she taught the 5th grade when I was in school. She was the first African American to be on the Board of Trustees at Carroll Community College. I joined the foundation board, I think Ken Holnecker talked me into joining that. And so that was a good experience, and we did a lot of firsts with that, and I'm proud to be a member of that foundation. They've done a lot of good things in the county for county students and for small businesses. So this past year, we raised over $1.3 million to donate for the retirement of Dr. Pappalardo, and they named the nursing building after her. I mean, to think, here's a county that I don't even think right now we don't have 200,000 people in the county, and to raise over $1 million in less than 6 months, that was a great feat.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I thought that was unique.
What would you like to see happen in the future for Carroll County?
Well, I'd like to see Carroll County become more diversified. We still do not, I think, share things equally. It was kind of odd here this past week. There was an article in the paper where the county commissioners, they wanted to pass a law that the public transportation was only going to be in Carroll County. They couldn't go outside of the county. I mean, that's separatism, racism. I mean, you can't be a part of a big country if you want to live in an island. We advertise that, we have the great farm museum and all the great things that we do in the county, and then we have commissioners come out and we don't want anyone else to come here on a bus. We don't have a train that brings passengers anywhere. We don't want anyone coming here on a bus. I mean, more people have cars than there are buses. That kind of disappointed me. I think we should be open to the world. We have all nationality of people coming to this country. You don't see any people leaving this country, so why do we want to be so separate? Very different.
Do you see everyday aspects of racism still in the county?
Well, not really. There are not many engineering jobs in Carroll County, and I've never worked in Carroll County as an adult. I worked here as a kid, working for the nursery and cutting grass and that type of thing. And when I worked for Black & Decker, the engineering department was never in Hampstead. It's always been in Towson. So I've never worked in the county, so I've always worked with a diversified group of people, and all my jobs, except for Black & Decker, there are African Americans, women. Matter of fact, the past president of the company I work for now, BA System, was a lady, and she just retired this year, but she was president, and we have probably close to 100,000 people in the county. in the country, and she was president. So it's a big difference working outside of Carroll County and working inside of Carroll County. You know, that's one of the disadvantages of living here. There are very few high-tech jobs here. The jobs that pay good money, unless you own your own business, you just don't have it here. You have to leave. We're like a bedroom county. Everyone leaves in the morning, everyone comes back in the evening.
What do you think it would take to diversify Carroll County?
That's a good question. It'd take a whole new group of people. People with different philosophies. It's just going to take time, I guess, because some of the people that are in charge now, you have to get rid of them because they don't have open minds. You know, they think it's just Carroll County and leave the rest of the world out, and you can't survive like that.
I know you've done some international travel for your job. How has that changed your views in any way?
Well, when you leave the U.S., my experience is Americans, foreign countries look at Americans as Americans. They don't look at black, white, red, or yellow. If you're American and you travel in jeans and tennis shoes, you're an American. They treat us all the same. I'm sure other countries have. I spent a lot of time in England and Scotland, and they have a lot of problems with different nationalities, but it's not as blatant as it is here in the U.S. against African Americans. There's a Scottish against British and different other nationalities. But when you leave, my few experiences, when you leave the U.S. and go to another country, you're an American. They don't consider you white, black, red. If you're American, you're American. They call us the Americans. Go home, Americans.
Sounds like you haven't found that we have a good reputation.
Well, I wouldn't say we have a bad. I think we have a good reputation because everybody's trying to come here. No one's trying to leave. So when you look at it from that aspect, people come in here every day, illegals, legals, the whole 9 yards. So we have a good reputation. It's just that in some countries, we've had some people that made us look bad. And I think that stigmatism has followed us.
So what do you see yourself doing?
Retiring and doing nothing.
Doing nothing really, Bernie?
Yes. Just sit on my deck and just relax and watch the sunset.
I don't think the community's really going to give you that chance, it doesn't sound like, but you can try.
I'll try.
Anything else you'd like to tell us about
I
your
think
experience
we've covered
here?
a lot. I mean, I think the important things. I'm not the only person that's done the first things in Carroll County. I've done a few. I'm not an original Carroll County, so I wasn't even born here. So they always say if you weren't born here, you're not a Carroll County.
I know, I've heard that too. I wasn't born here, but it is interesting that a lot of people have done first things. A lot of African Americans who live here now
Yes.
have done first things. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, that, you know, coming up at a time when you were likely to be the first in a county where there were so few people of color.
Yeah, I can remember when Richard Dixon was running for the school board. That was quite different in Carroll County. And I think he lost the first time, but then he won all his next consecutive times. No, I don't think he didn't lose the first time. He lost his first time running for House of Delegates. He was the first African American running for House of Delegates. And, you know, I helped work on those campaigns. And that was an experience. It wasn't like Baltimore City when you were campaigning there. It's totally different, you know. In the city, you know, it's just one against the other. Here, you know, if you're a different nationality, it makes a big difference. But we survive. I still like Carroll County. Great place to live. Not a great place to work, but it's a great place to live.
Thanks, Bernie.
I thank you for having me.
Joining me now is Ronald Collins from the Johnsville area of Carroll County, Maryland. So Ronald, I'd like for us to start today by you sharing a bit about the area in which you grew up here in Carroll County.
Well, thanks, Pat. I'm from the Eldersburg, Johnsville area, and originally Johnsville was first settled by some freed African American slaves and free African Americans. And it dates back to the early 1800s. And the county or the area that it came from was called Freedom because slavery was abolished there early in the 1800s. So a lot of my ancestors moved there or migrated there from other places. Like my paternal great-great-grandfather, he migrated there, brought his family there from North Carolina. And my great-grandfather was the first free African-American born in my family in 1834.
So it sounds like a very interesting area. And I know you're here today to not only speak about the area, but to again share some information about your ancestors and how they really blazed the trail for others growing up in Carroll County.
Well, the trail that they blazed was actually in the area of farming because it was a largely agriculture area. The main occupation there was farming. A lot of them raised cattle and livestock and raised crops for a living. The first one that went outside that field was my grandfather, Mr. Ronald Collins Sr. He actually had started his own construction company back in 1900, and he also built several houses in the area and also the Johnsville United Methodist Church, which I am a member of today, and it's still standing 94 years. It's 94 years old.
So with being in the farming business, evidently your family owned a lot of land in the area?
My grandfather owned quite a bit, but the largest landowner in Johnsville was Mr. Armfield Gosnell. He owned a great deal of land, and he was the largest farmer in that area. And I traced his roots back to the late 1790s. The first Gosnell that was born in that area was a freed slave, and after that point in the 1790s, everyone in their family was free.
So pretty much all of the family members then worked in the farming industry?
Farming and sharecropping and construction and things like that. And then as the community grew, we ventured out to other things like Springfield Hospital was there, and the correctional facilities down at Sykesville, and places where we could get hired. But the first one that went outside of the area was George Toots Collins, which everybody knew as Big George. He made his money or occupation as in the correctional field. He was also the first black warden in the state of Maryland, as he was appointed to warden of the Central Laundry Correctional Facility in Sykesville. And he later went on to become the first black warden at the Maryland Penitentiary in Baltimore in 1973.
And George would have been your...
George is my brother.
Brother, okay.
And I was very proud of him, and hopefully he was proud of me, but his accomplishments included being elected to the Board of Directors of Carroll County Hospital. He was also the first black deputy sheriff in Carroll County. He was also helped spearhead the Concerned Citizens of Carroll County. It was an awareness group to further advance the presence of blacks in Carroll County.
Were you a part of the Concerned Citizens of Carroll
Yes,
County?
I was a minor part, and it was George and Mr. Jones and several other his friends that actually started the group, and they actually opened a lot of doors for us by getting us jobs and having meetings, and we had fundraisers and dances, and it was a good time for us and with that group.
So you're saying that the concerned citizens actually opened some doors for those who were growing
Yes.
up in the area?
Yes, they, at that time, back in, it was 1973, several of the companies that were here would not hire or didn't hire blacks. And it would be Baltimore Gas and Electric, C&P Telephone, Random House Publishers, and Westinghouse down in Sykesville came to the response and actually hired a great many of us. Baltimore Gas and Electric hired one person, that was Mr. Hank Allball, and Westinghouse hired a few people in the office and in the factory. Random House hired office personnel for the first time, black office personnel for the first time. And at C&P Telephone, there was actually hired 9 of us, myself and 9 others. And they didn't make it easy for us, but I feel that we represented our race very well. And some of us went on to have careers of 30 years or more.
You being one of the ones who
Yeah, I
worked
was
that long
one of
at
the ones,
CMP?
and I stayed there, and I still have a passion for that job. Even though I've been retired from there for 12 years, I still wish I had never retired, but life goes on.
So you saw some changes in that company as you worked with them over the years?
Yes, being the first one there, and like I said, we had to represent, and slowly but surely they hired more and more black people came to work there in Westminster, and even in Randallstown, I was the only black one in Randallstown for I guess 7 or 8 years before they hired another black, and then it seemed like the door was open, and they went ahead and hired many of our people.
So being the only black in the company years ago when you first started, what was that like? How did it feel being the only one there?
Well, you were isolated, of course, but there are good people everywhere. Some of the people wouldn't talk to me and wouldn't sit and eat lunch with me, but others did, and slowly, I guess I represented us well, and they warmed up to me, and I got to be friends with a good many of them.
So over the years then, you saw that you weren't just having lunch alone or doing things sort of by yourself, but you really felt like you were becoming a part of the company?
The job that I had required that I work with a partner, and you and your partner were responsible for each other. You watch out for each other. And you're climbing poles, and you're going in manholes and ditches and things. It's dangerous, so you really had to watch out for your partner. But over the years, I developed a good trust and was able to, like I said, become good friends with several of my coworkers.
Yes, I heard you mention the word trust, and that's what I was thinking of as you were talking about climbing the high poles and being in those ditches. You would really have to have someone with you that you really trusted.
Well, one of us would climb and one of us would stay on the ground in case something happened, or if he went down in the manhole, one would stay up on ground level and the other one would go down. But you did have to trust each other, and I feel that over the years I did earn that trust from a lot of my coworkers.
So did you stay with the same partner during your entire career at CNP, or did you
No,
have
I
different partners?
had 3 different partners, but and later as I got up in the years, I was able to transfer to a job where I worked by myself basically. My first 7 years I had a partner, and in my last 23 years I basically worked by myself in a smaller truck, and I was on my own other than a beeper and a phone and a cell phone. That's a computer that was out linked to the dispatch center and where we worked.
So by the time you finished your career at CMP, you saw that there was a pretty diverse working group there? Or?
Yeah, it was, they had hired several other black people and developed a friendship with them also. But they had no idea that I was the first, I never brought it up and never mentioned it. And it's not something I was, but as time went on, they hired more and more blacks, and they trust, like you said, a trust began to build.
So through your involvement with the concerned citizens of Carroll County, I can hear how starting your job at CMP really did lead you to become a trailblazer, certainly in your own right. Again, one that you may not have thought of earlier, but certainly you became that for others. Now, as you were talking about your family, you certainly mentioned some of your earlier ancestors, and you also mentioned your brother, George Collins. You mentioned Alan Collins and being one of the first landowners in Johnsville, and sounds like you're very proud of the construction company that he started, and that, again, his company built the church that you still worship in today. Do you have other family members that you would like to share information about as well, as far as how they blazed the trail for others?
I'm also proud of my older sister,
Uh-huh.
Gladys Collins Smith.
Okay.
She was the first black recipient of the senatorial scholarship upon graduating from Robert Bowden High School back in 1953. It was a prestigious award that was only previously offered to whites, and she was the first black to receive that. So I'm awfully proud of her. I'm also proud of my younger sister, Joan Collins Armstrong. She was the first black female infection control director for the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. Joan also received an award for making a significant contribution for controlling tuberculosis in Maryland, and which at that time was, now it's almost unheard of someone getting tuberculosis, but at that time it was rampant in the prison system, and Joan helped stem the tide and bring it under control. I'd also like to talk about Mr. Bradley Collins, okay, which everyone knows is the sax man of Carroll County. Bradley has donated quite a bit of his own time to help charities raise money by playing his horn. And he was also the first black high school band director in Carroll County, and that was at South Carroll High School. And he held that position for 11 years. And it was quite significant because at that time, there was only 5 high schools in Carroll County, and being a black band director was something unheard of, especially at South Carroll, where we received I went to South Carroll, and there was a lot of prejudice there. And for Bradley to achieve that made me quite proud of him.
So Bradley as well graduated from South Carroll High School?
Yes.
Okay, and then later became the band director. And,
yes.
And as you're saying, I think everybody in Carroll County has pretty much heard of Brad Collins and what magic he really does with playing his saxophone.
Yeah, every time I hear him, I just get prouder and prouder, but no one's more prouder than his mother, Hazel. She sits there and she tries to control her enthusiasm when he plays, but I can see right through it.
So as you have shared with me thus far, certainly you have a long line of ancestors and family members, and I can hear that you're most proud of them and the contributions they've made, not only to us here in Carroll County, but again, their contributions really spread throughout the state. So I can hear that you're proud, and being a fellow Carroll Countian, I'm certainly proud of your family and the efforts that you've made as well. I think maybe we can wrap up by you maybe just sharing a little bit about what it feels like being a trailblazer here in the county for others that you know who are coming along and moving forward.
Well, if you let me mention two more people
Oh,
that
sure.
I feel are significant.
Okay, don't leave anyone out.
And they are called Alan Collins and Norman Collins. And everyone knew them as Wolf and Punk. That was their nicknames. And they're significant that they started the first incorporated black construction company in Carroll County. It was wholly owned by and run by two black brothers. And the contribution, they started in 1950, and it was significant because no other company in Carroll County at that time was incorporated and in business. But and I'm also proud of them. They're my cousins.
Okay. All right. Now, can you think, because I know you mentioned Alan Collins, I guess one of your grandfathers?
Alan Collins was my actual cousin.
Oh, okay.
That was Alan Collins the third, I believe.
Okay.
And Norman Collins was Norman Collins the second. So, but everybody knew him as Wolf and Punk.
Okay. So now in their construction business, any places that you could name that they were responsible for building that
Columbia
we know
City.
about? Oh, they helped
Yeah.
with the city of Columbia?
When Columbia was first started, they did a lot of the foundation, and they laid a lot of the foundations and the trenches for the utilities. I believe they maybe laid the foundation for half of Columbia before they went out of business in the late 70s.
And that is just so very significant. And I must share that, again, I have a connection here as well, because it would have been Mr. Allen's son. We called Allen Boy. I had gone to school with Allen Boy, and I think Allen Boy had really just graduated from high school and was working over in Columbia. And I understand that he was killed while working on the job there in Columbia. So
it was an unfortunate accident. He had just graduated from school, and he was operating a backhoe, and it flipped over on him and pinned him underneath. And he was only 18, and it was very unfortunate. But that was one of the reasons why the Collins Brothers, the Collins Brothers Construction Company, really folded up after a little while after that.
I see. Now, I don't want you to feel slighted. Are there others that you would like to mention as well?
Well, I'd like to mention Mr. Blaine Brown
Okay.
and Mr. Walter Shirley. We were the first blacks to be recruited in the Maryland Army National Guard unit located in the old Westminster Armory in downtown Westminster. I was recruited first in 72, and Blaine Brown and Walter Shirley were recruited in 1975, and we were the first three blacks ever to be, I believe, maybe even set foot in the building. It was very segregated, and, but as they did at CMP, they calmly warmed up to us, so as to speak, and we had long careers there. I stayed there until 1979, and Blaine Brown and Walter stayed longer after I left.
So you are a trailblazer in a number of ways then.
I like to think so, but I know that at the time we felt that we didn't actually know we were making a difference, but for later generations, I do feel that opportunities became open to them because of us, and hopefully somebody will in the future will recognize the trailblazers that I mentioned here today, that actually helped them achieve equality in Carroll County.
Okay, well, I certainly thank you for sharing your rich history of your family and also of your own contributions. So thank you very much for your trailblazing efforts, and I would like to think that certainly all of the efforts have not been in vain, because we do see that others coming along now have opened pathways ahead of them. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Would you please tell us your name and how long you've been living in Carroll County?
My name is James Pernell Hammond. Lived here all my life, 71 years.
Wonderful. So you are native of Carroll County?
Native of Carroll, and recently of Frederick County also, but it's on the borderline.
Okay.
Both lines, I'm right at Buffalo Road.
Okay. We're here to talk about trailblazers in the African American community. Can you tell us about Boss Hammond? How was he related to you, and what was his occupation?
Well, Boss was a real distant cousin to me. My father's uncle, his father, and Boss Hammond were brothers.
Okay.
So it throws it a way down the path for us. But yeah, they have all talked about him to us, and we knew about him as the years went on.
Well, what did they say about him?
Well, he was a man that that had a vision of being free. He was a slave and couldn't read or write, but he could do things with his hands. He was a master stone cutter. He burned his own stone for lime. He was a shoe farer, and
What's a shoe fair?
the man that puts the shoes on horses
Okay.
and things, and blacksmith
Okay.
type of work and things of that nature. And but he actually worked enough with the stones that he bought his freedom.
Is that his work right there?
Yes,
Would you
ma'am.
like to share it with it? Now, I understand that some of his work is at Fairview United Methodist Church,
Yes.
and also in the the African American Museum downtown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reginald Lewis
Museum.
Museum,
Yes.
yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Then you can go all over Frederick and Carroll counties, and even up into Pennsylvania, you'll find some of his stones. I went across Copper Mine Road the other day to Woodsboro, and I looked to the left, and there was these line of stones, and all these were his stones in that graveyard. So,
Now, let me say this. He could not read or write, but how did he was able to carve these words on the tombstones?
well, the way I was told that they would write what they wanted on the stone, and then he would do the dress work, I call it.
Okay.
That fancy scroll you see around, that was his. And the stone itself, if you see it's not very thick,
Right.
but it weathers well. You can go in any grave, and he picked a stone that would weather.
Okay.
And it's over 100 and some years ago. Yes.
So how do you think, what impact do you think he had on the Carroll County community once he was a free man?
Well, I really don't know, but he ended up being a poor man.
Really?
Yeah, because he had a family,
Okay.
and they charged him a lot of money. I don't have the document with me how much he paid to free his family, his wife
Okay.
and children. So it took him down. So, but he was well known as a fine stone cutter.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that.
Yes.
I want to change it a little bit now to talk about Jazz Hammond.
Oh, my
okay. Who was he? How was he related to you?
Well, Jazz Hammond was my father. Little man, but a powerful little man. He started the Carroll County chapter of the NAACP back in 1953.
Whoa, okay.
And I'd ride with him to the meetings in Baltimore at the Sharp Street Church. And by me riding with him, we always thought he wasn't a very good driver, so my mom and them wanted me to ride along. So I was 10 years old, and I go, and sometimes they would let me in the church, and sometimes I'd have to sit out in the car, which would be against the law now. But I got to meet some real distinguished people.
Such as?
Well, Martin Luther King was there one day. Judge Allen, the airport named after Mr. Marshall.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there. Mrs. Jackson. And the Mitchells, a lot of Mitchells was there.
Okay.
And Murphys.
Okay, yes.
Yes, and they were all there, and that's how he wanted to do it right. So he went through the NAACP and started that chapter. And
is that a picture of him? Okay.
there's a picture of
Okay.
my father.
And your mom. Oh, that's a lovely picture.
Yes.
What impact did he have on the community of Carroll County?
Well,
What changes did he make and things like that?
he made a lot of changes.
Okay.
People, Brown versus Board of Education. See, he started this in '53, and Brown versus Board of Education in '54.
Right.
Well, needless to say, I didn't think me riding up and down the road going to Baltimore to these meetings with him that it would affect me one day.
Okay.
And in September '55, he made inroads to the Board of Education about blacks going to the integrated schools near their homes. And September '55, that's when I was, I'd say, injected into the Carroll County integrated school system.
And what school was that?
Elmer A. Wolf.
Oh, okay. All right.
The Notes family and the Hammond Milbury family went to Elmer Wolf. New Windsor were Butler and Milbury.
Okay.
And it was the two families that, in each school it was two families that went. Yeah. And
How was he able to convince the school board that they need to integrate schools? Do you remember?
well, he went down and talked to Samuel Jennis, was the superintendent of schools at that time. And he went down and he told him that his tax money was not, it was the same scale. He had to pay tax on the same scale that everybody, so he felt as though that his children should go to the nearest school. And being Brown versus Board of Education was passed, well, they couldn't say no. I mean,
Right.
it was the law. And so they accepted it, but the people didn't accept it right away. They had meetings, took children out of school. They stopped speaking to my father at work and different places, yes. But it went along, you know, and the people went to Annapolis to repeal it, but it didn't work. So gradually things started working its way back to normalcy, and it ended up a whole lot better than it started out. For me, I'll put it that way.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we had basketball and sports. It's when the other children came over that it got a lot better when they built Francis Scott Key in 1959, 60 year. See, I went 4 years at Elmer Wolf before Key. And so at Key, more blacks came.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's when it really, I thought it blossomed into a nice atmosphere again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when all that happened, how did you feel about your dad making that big change in the county?
I thought he lost his mind. I'm gonna tell you the truth. Yeah, because I left all my friends at Robert Moton in Westminster.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah, but the white fellas and the black fellas, or kids, all played ball together for years on
Okay.
the little carnival ground in Union Bridge.
Okay.
So we knew most of the people or the families. But the rural area up around Keymar and Detour, we didn't know that well. But right around New Windsor and Union Bridge, we knew pretty much everybody.
I see you got a picture in your hand.
Oh, this picture? This is the second class at Francis Scott Key, graduating class, the the Mighty Eagles,
Okay.
the class of '61.
And that's when you graduated?
That's the year I graduated.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And-
Very diverse group there.
Yes. And went on to be very diverse in life.
Right.
We have doctors and some lawyers in here in my class. Of course,
Okay.
I wasn't one of them, but yes, we do. And one of the black guys on this picture was the dean of Clark University Business College in
Wonderful.
Atlanta.
Very
Ed
good.
Davis. Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, so.
Anything else you'd like to share about Boss Hammond and Jazz Hammond?
Well, Jazz Hammond went on.
Why do they call him Jazz for us?
Well, I don't know. I guess he was a jazzy little guy. I
Oh,
guess.
okay.
He put in many years at Lehigh Portland Cement Company. I'm close to 50, if not 50.
Whoa.
I heard maybe 52 because he worked there 2 times, and I followed his footsteps there.
Okay.
I got a job in '64, and he still was there. Well, it's funny you might ask about the name of Jazz, because I'm Jazz also. I'm Little Jazz.
Okay.
I was, and then when he retired, I became Jazz.
Okay.
So I would like to think maybe because he was a jazzy little fellow or something, I don't know. But he did many things. He did many things. He was a 33rd degree Mason also.
Okay.
Taught himself. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He went to 3rd grade in school. So he was something, I tell you. He could do math better than me. Oh, it was awful. That was bad at home, I tell you, because he couldn't believe I couldn't count as fast as he could or come down the lines with the. But he was good. He was good. But then he went on. He did that, and I think some of the people you might know that was in the Eastern Stars. He was the head of the Eastern Stars
Okay.
too. Also,
Wow. All right.
yeah. Yeah. So.
He was a great man.
He did many things. Yes, he did. Well, I don't know about great, but he did a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course he wanted me to be a Mason, and of course I am still an NAACP member.
Okay.
I carry that. I keep that
Yes.
membership in, and but they have a thing here where they said that they should honor him. The picture I gave you, did I give you a picture of my mother? Or
Yeah. Yeah, he shows it.
Well, that was the one when he passed, and they said they should maybe make him an honorary something.
Member,
Yeah,
okay.
something in the county.
How long did he serve?
Oh, here it is right here. County commissioners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly, but he was 53, and he was still the president in the early 60s.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, he was a man born 1900, so whatever
Okay.
the year was, that was his age. Yeah, and the commissioners thought they should
Oh, great.
honor him as. So, but all in all, that was mostly his background. And this lady, well, I'll let you go. You tell me what you ask me what you want me to.
No.
Think. Well, the lady that's the Brigadier General,
Yes.
you've heard the old saying about the fruit not falling very far from the tree. Most people don't know, but she's a Hammond also.
Oh, is she?
Yes.
Okay.
Her mother was Genevieve Hammond. No, not her mother. Her father's mother was Genevieve Hammond. Her grandmother was Genevieve Hammond. And but she went on through a lot of trials and tribulations to keep fighting until she got to where she is now.
Great.
So yes, I thought it was something to be said about that. And there was a man in the county for blacks way back in the old days of the black schools. they were like churches and things like that, where when they let you have black children to go to school. There was a man by the name of Mr. Howard Davis.
Okay.
He had like a little hacking business. Well, he would run his automobiles to take kids back and forth from the Union Bridge, New Windsor areas to the schools.
Okay.
And one lady made a statement sometimes that they'd have to put air in the tires when they left Westminster to get back home.
Really?
So I remember, now Davis, the guy that was the dean of Clark, that was his grandfather.
Okay.
And I remember faintly, I was like 5 or 6 years old, I heard him talk, that he and Mr. Davis and his son, which was my buddy's father, went to Detroit to get a new 48 Dodge bus. And they had 2 buses that they ran from the northwestern part of the county to Westminster.
Okay.
And that's how the kids would get an education, because they only went to the 7th grade in these church schools, and then Westminster from there to the 11th grade until 49 or 50, I think they went 12 years.
Okay.
Yes. So, but yeah, when I went to Moton, we went to Robert Moton 1 through 12, the new school, the new Robert Moton. I was in the 1st grade. I have a lot of firsts that I didn't think, I don't think much of them sometimes, I tell you. But yeah, that was a brand new school in 4950.
Great.
Yes.
Great. And
then I left there in the 6th grade.
Okay.
So.
Well, Mr. Pernell, thank you so much for a very informative, detailed interview. We greatly appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Will you please state your name, how long you've been in Carroll County, when you moved in, and the political office that you hold?
Okay, my name is Charles Harrison, and I moved to Carroll County in 1977. I'm originally from Baltimore County, and I was transferred from the FBI's Washington Field Division to the Baltimore FBI office.
Okay, and what political position do you hold right now?
I'm currently the sitting judge of the Carroll County Orphans Court, also known as the Probate Court. I was appointed by the current governor to fill a vacancy upon the death of Judge Ronald Brewer.
Okay, and what does that job entail?
Oh my goodness, that job entails ensuring, well, I'm part of a 3-judge panel. And what our responsibilities are is to ensure that the proper administration of wills and estates are carried out according to state law. That involves such things as appointing the executor for the state or the personal representative. It involves ensuring that accountings of all assets involved in that estate is handled appropriately, and review of those assets. And we're responsible for the review of the disposition of those assets also. We're also responsible for reviewing the duties of the various attorneys that are selected to handle the estate. We hold hearings as necessary on exceptions, on codicils to wills. So it's a very active role there. I am assuming I'm the first minority that's held this position in Carroll County, and currently run for re-election for the position. I bring a lot of attributes to that job: a new energy, a new perspective, a vast 28 years, as a matter of fact, of interviewing, questioning, administrative issues, and I also have excellent interpersonal skills that allow me to deal effectively with the community.
People. Great. What was family life like when you were growing up, and how has that impacted you today?
I grew up in a small black enclave in southeastern Baltimore County. It's called Turner Station. It's little known, but it was the last train stop before the workers went to Bethlehem Steel Company. And it was self-contained. It had all schools there. The schools were integrated, but segregated because they were allocated geographically. So if you put all black people in one location, you're gonna have all black schools because they live in one location. And that was the situation there. So we had churches, we had bars, we had restaurants. Everything was in the community, which served to my benefit, essentially because each black kid was important. Each black child was motivated because of that. And we had black stars in the community. Kwesi and Fume lived there. Calvin Hill lived there. One of the current, McNair, the astronaut, lived in that community. The former special agent in charge of the FBI's Atlanta division during the Olympic bombings, Theodore Jackson, we went to Sunday school, high school, college, and worked together in the FBI's Cleveland office. He's from there. So you have numerous people, and it was the atmosphere where it motivated you. It also got me involved in the civil rights movement, because then the nearest shopping district was Dundalk, which was the all-white area. We could shop at the MP, but we couldn't work there. You could not even be a busboy there. Patterson Park was the nearest swimming pool, but black kids weren't welcome there. So there was no, we had to, from the Boy Scouts, we were driven to Chick Webb pool on Caroline Street in East Baltimore. So that was quite an experience there, where you got your first tinges of segregation in the era of integration. So your jobs were there. High school, I love doing things with my hands. I was in the general high school course there. Took architectural drafting and just got a good basic education. So when I went to Morgan, I felt prepared to compete. I played basketball there at Solace Point, and where they would bus us to Overly, to Towson, to Catonsville, to Kenwood High, all of the other white schools, and we could see the stark differences between their facilities and our facilities. And even though it was unspoken, most kids realized that there is a difference there. But you knew how to grow to overcome those difficulties.
So those difficulties that you overcame, how did that help you? How does that help you in your seeking of political office here in Carroll County in a majority white area?
Well, between that, college, where Morgan was in Northwood, where the black kids were encouraged to walk down the alley instead of the main street or through Northwood, or cut through Heck Company there to get to campus. And you could see the differences there. And you couldn't go to the Northwood Theater. You couldn't really try on clothes at the Heck Company in Northwood Shopping Center. Those type of things. And then through the urban outreach subject matter, we would see and do studies on pricing in the inner city, differences in food markets and food stocks that are in the county, and what happens to those food stocks after they've been on the shelf for a week in the counties. They were moved to the cities, and the same food items, instead of being destroyed, was moved on. So you actually saw those difficulties there, and those indiscrepancies in fairness. So it led me to be an activist, to be aggressive. I participated in the original March on Washington as a part of the Turner Station Youth Corps. That sounds like a subversive organization at this point, But it was not. It was more religious based, and there was the youth branch of the local NAACP chapter. Coming up also, my first job was working. I was 16 and needed a work permit. So my first work experience was at Baltimore City Hospital in the gerontology section where you had senior citizens. There I learned, and on my job at the orphanage court now, we deal with mostly seniors, a lot of seniors, and I see people at their best, but I also see families at their worst. So money, wills, estates, sometimes brings out the worst of us. And before each hearing, I caution people not to let that little bit of money, destroy the family structure. But also working there motivate me to do better. I was the guy that when they would have accidents and accidentally urinate in the floor, I'm the guy that with the mop that would sweep that up and buff the floors. And then I realized I need to go to school. And that's what motivated me. The second job was working at Hochschild Combs the next summer in downtown Baltimore. I was a stock boy in the rug department. And there I learned about Kermans, about how Oriental rugs are made, the structure, the material, how they're classified, how they're rated. And oftentimes we were instructed, requested to bring those big bales out to folks' homes, move the furniture, put the rug down, and the lady, who normally was not a minority, would say, oh, no. And so we'd load this thing back up and lug it all the way back downtown. And these were gigantic, heavyweight, heavy-duty bundles of Kermans and Indian rugs. That summer motivated me to stay in school. I entered in, this was during the Vietnam era, so I entered into the ROTC program. I took ROTC flight training. I became a private pilot while in at Morgan. That was a part of the class. So instead of the 2-year ROTC obligation, I incurred a 3rd year. I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Army, United States Army. Went through infantry officers basic course at Fort Benning and then on to flight school. There, flight school was in a place called Fort Walters, which was in Mineral Wells, Texas, about 40 miles west of Dallas-Fort Worth. They had pilots from Southern Airways. And you can read into what you want with that name, Southern Airways, but there were very few minorities there, very few minorities in Mineral Wells. The minorities were Hispanics, Mexicans, pretty much, and they were the migrant workers there. And so an officer, a black officer, a young second lieutenant, was an oddity there. So I didn't live on post, I lived in the community, rented a trailer. But your instructor pilots, I didn't see anybody that looked like me. So I've got a history of not seeing or not associating or not being around folks who set examples for me, who set role models for me. And one of the instructor pilots, we're both with helmets on and we're communicating, and I'm trying to fly, and the instructor pilot would say, well, you know, I don't believe you Negroes were meant to fly, you know? And he would just say that, and you know, you're trying to operate this helicopter, and so you knew what this guy's opinion of you was. But the motivating factor there was, as a young second lieutenant with the infantry branch, I'd either fly over Vietnam or I would be walking through Vietnam. And at that juncture, I surmised that there were enough black people walking through Vietnam. They did not need me. So I'd rather fly over. So that was the motivation for me to finish flight school. And even in the military, there were very few black pilots that were there. Most blacks were infantry instead of the more, I guess, prestigious MOSs, and the MOS was your work specialty. So that was pretty much it. And then after Vietnam, in the interim, I taught school. Before I went in, I was a elementary school teacher. I taught at O'Donnell Heights Elementary School, and that was in a little north of Dundalk, Highlandtown, still at the city line. There I was the only black teacher, and the first black teacher. Lower socioeconomic area, very few two-family homes, very sparse participation of the mothers in the educational process. But when the black teacher showed up, the first PTA meeting, I had 24 parents come to see me to check out this black teacher. So from that perspective, it motivated a greater participation in the educational process for those kids. And then after coming back from Vietnam and prior to accepting a position with the FBI, I taught over in Fairfield Elementary, and I taught middle school, which was then 5th and 6th combination. And still another lower socioeconomic area outside of Brooklyn section of Baltimore City. I entered the FBI in early 1972. J. Edgar Hoover was still alive, so you had very few blacks in the FBI. I think I was like 62 or 63 nationwide. And even fewer Hispanics, even fewer Asians, I don't think any Indians, so the choices of minorities was very sketchy and very, very slim there then, and you had a lot of issues. That worked in my behalf because I had an opportunity, because I was a black agent, and they had very few of them, to work on just about every major case that was going on in the country. So from New Orleans to California to Abscam. I did the original FBI undercover sting operations, worked for LEAA, assisting state and local authorities in setting up undercover fencing operations. So I had a pretty extensive career, and when I was transferred to Baltimore, because of my undercover participation, I worked my way up and became the first black supervisor for the FBI of Maryland and Delaware here. I was the supervisor of the President's International Organized Crime Drug Task Force. So I supervised FBI drug cases from Philadelphia down to Richmond in Norfolk, Virginia. And that's that Middle Atlantic region where I was responsible for the task force, for the deputization and of the state and local police officers to participate in the task forces. So I had a very extensive career there. I went to FBI headquarters as a supervisor, where I set up their drug intelligence program for the FBI. And then I became an FBI assistant inspector. From there, came off the inspection staff. I was a special advisor to Assistant Secretary of State Bob Gilbard for international narcotics and organized crime at State Department. I guess when in the late 80s, the CIA started supporting the FBI's effort in international organized crime and requested assistance from the FBI. So I was, Director Sessions selected me to go to the agency and set up their international organized crime program. And I went to Langley and eventually retired out of there.
Oh, you retired?
Yeah, well, that's, I don't call it retirement, I call it career transition.
Okay.
You just move from one interest to another.
Yes.
And I continue to participate in that role. After 9/11, my specialty changed, and I became an expert in international counterterrorist efforts, which took me to some interesting places around the world, mostly third world, places that where Al-Qaeda and the terrorist groups were seeking safe havens. My responsibility was to support those local governments to try to beef them up, to provide training for them, to resist those efforts and those incursions by international terrorist groups. And I still have a hand in that as an independent contractor. So.
Well, you've had a lot of experiences that have helped you really learn how to deal with a lot of different people in a lot of different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, with my responsibility with the Orphans Court, what I bring is organization, and again, like I mentioned, the worth ethic. The court now, we hold file reviews. I call for the files on any particular estate a day before a hearing. So, and I take time to review that file so I know who all of your relatives are, I know who you are, I know the amount of assets that are in that estate, I know how they're being disposed of, I know what the issues are, so I can talk intelligently with any attorney and with that person regarding his parents' will. And I can effectively administer that estate based on my experiences there. So we do hold file reviews. And unlike most of the Orphans Court judges, it requires no legal experience. But it is necessary. I'm the only judge that actually can write a written order or has experience writing judicial and legal documents. I spent 28 years dealing with the various judiciaries in each jurisdiction around the U.S. and at the federal level also. So I write affidavits, I can write opinions, I can write decisions, and have done so with this court.
So you've come well prepared. Now let's talk about you, the person.
All right.
All right. What things do you like to do?
In my free time, which there's very little of. For years, I was not involved in the community as such. My first experiences with the Carroll County community was upon my retirement. I would look at the legislators here in the county and the various politicians and office holders with a jaundiced eye, and I would see, to try to determine if any corruption or malfeasance and looking at whether they were effectively functioning, because Maryland had the history of political corruption and other issues, kickbacks and those type of things that were going on with local and state politicians. So that was a part of my job. Upon my retirement, I became involved in the community. I was one of the county ethics commission. I served on the commission for 4 years there. I got involved with Marion Ware, director of the media center here, and I sat on that board for several years. I joined the NAACP. Well, I always was a member, but not active, and became vice president in NAACP for years. And then I became president of the Carroll County NAACP for about 2 terms prior to Gene Lewis taking over. And she's the most effective person, in my opinion there, was that you're not president for life. Everybody brings a different attribute to the table. My contribution was to organize the local chapter to establish some credibility within the community here as to how we methodically reviewed cases of discrimination and how we went about conducting our investigations of those issues. So when we went to the victim or the perpetrator of a discriminatory act, we had all the facts together and we knew what we were talking about, and we came not only with problems, but we came with solutions, and that included the lack of minority teachers here in Carroll County, where we first addressed that issue with Dr. Eckert and subsequently with the current superintendent, which resulted in the NAACP playing an active role in the recruitment and efforts to retain minority teachers here in Carroll County. I currently serve as a board member of Shepherd Staff, which is the Community Outreach Center. If I'm going to invest time, that's the most effective way to do it, where you see and you get immediate feedback. You get immediate gratification when you write a check or you give a kid a pair of shoes or you make sure the electric or the heat's turned on in someone's house. So from that perspective, I got more and more involved. That leaves very limited time. In my free time, I normally end up cutting grass. I own a house that I'm working and renovating in, so I still like to do things with my hands. So I do electrical, plumbing, carpentry work, and I do most of those things myself.
If you were to give young people today an advice, wisdom, in seeking their journey for themselves, what would you say to them?
Get involved in the broader community, which is something I sensed here in Carroll County. I moved here in 1977 in South Carroll. It would be months before I saw another black face in South Carroll. So I would meet people in the grocery store, minorities. I'd walk up, hey, do you live here? And I would approach people. You've noticed I'm an outgoing guy, and I'm not shy or bashful about approaching people and communicating. That's so important. So I would tell young people to get active, and minorities sometimes tend to segregate themselves and only associate with that minority group. And that is a level of comfort. And I can understand everyone wants that level of comfort. But to be successful, you got to first speak the King's English. You know, I was so against Ebonics and this stuff, because there's a broader society out there that you've got to work and you've got to effectively function in. So speak the King's English, get involved in those groups that are outside of your comfort level or your comfort zone. So, don't hang with the minorities. Diversity, you learn so much. So I would advise those folks to do that. And I would advise my minority children to get an education, stay in school. Basketball, scholarships, and football is not going to do it for you. You can only play those sports for so long. And if you elect to pursue those sports, do that after you've got a degree that's going to make you some money. People would come to me as an FBI supervisor. Well, Mr. Harrison, should I major in criminal justice? I said, no. Major in math, major in physics, psychology, something that's going to become a lawyer, something that's going to actually pay you some money. The FBI and most other major organizations are looking at you as an individual, as to what experiences you have, what do you bring to that organization, how do you contribute to that organization. FBI agents are always something else. You were a teacher, you were a preacher, you were a school teacher, you were a physicist, you were an Indian chief, but you bring those attributes into the FBI with you, and that's what enhances and makes any great organization. So I would say broaden your horizons, get that education first, and then pursue those other interests, or always have a fallback position there.
Do you have a favorite memory about just serving in the Orphans Court? Something you really enjoy about serving?
Well, I enjoy the opportunity, and it opened so many new horizons there. And as a part of that, I've done things like I've gone out to the Senior Expo, and I talked to senior citizens there. There's a wealth of knowledge there. There's a wealth of experiences there with the seniors of Carroll County. And don't underestimate those seniors here in Carroll County. So dealing with the seniors, and it opened up a different perspective in my dealings with the legal community here also. And some of the decisions I make, I'm not going to please everybody, but my decisions are fair, they're well thought out, and they're logical decisions. And I sort of laughed after some of the hearings, and I'm thinking, boy, I just lost that vote, didn't I? I'm a Democrat. Running for re-election, and that goes against the tide here in Carroll County. And I'm trying to set an example that people here in Carroll County should vote person, not party. Not party. you see what party has gotten us here in the last several years. So we need to take a hard, close look at those individuals that are running for office and what have they done for this county and the citizens, and what is their potential to bring additional resources and things like that here to the county. So I'm running an uphill battle, but it allows me to get out and meet more and more people as a Democrat. You know, when I first was opposed to the bench, and they said, well, Mr. Harrison, you're doing a great job here, and you're well thought of. Have you considered changing parties? Well, no, I could not live with myself to do that. The Democratic Party or the Republican Party is not who I am. You know, I judge myself by a higher criteria than that. You know, it's what I bring to the table and what I offer the citizens here at Carroll County. So my experiences on the office court, and I'd certainly like to keep the position because I have an opportunity to impact on so many lives here in ensuring that your assets and your wishes upon your demise are carried out in a fair and equitable manner.
And I know that means a lot to people when they sit in that court and it's done fairly, like you said. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Oh, well, thank
This
you.
has been great.
I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.